greetings and congratulations to all the parents, family members, supporters, partners, children who may be on this call today. This morning was such an exciting time for all of us, being really one of the first times for us at GS, the first time fully on campus. If you got to see the video this morning, you saw that we had a packed house, and I had the opportunity to meet several of the students individually. I'm looking at some of the names here, and there are a few that I recognize of parents or family members of students who participated in our pre-orientation meeting last week. And I actually heard from several students over the weekend, and it's just for us here at Columbia, it's a wonderful day. So I also want to, this is our first parent family event, to welcome you all in as the newest of family members, partners of Columbians, and we really say that when we accept a student to Columbia, we are accepting, their family, and we very much hope that you will stay connected with us throughout your students' journey here at Columbia. We usually would have had you sitting with us on Low Plaza today. We started this first when I had started as dean, and Dean Gallus-Hickey and Aviva Sablaki. We all started more or less around the same time in our positions, and we created a parent, family, supporter type of program where we will be doing this throughout the journey. We're very much hoping very soon we will be able to invite you to be on campus and to join us. And we want you to also experience the amazing intellectual community, and also have the opportunity to hear from faculty and all of the scholars that we have at Columbia, and that will be part of this morning. So I just want to say that it's one, to assure you as family members that the public health and safety has been at the forefront of every decision that we have made here at Columbia. It was in part the reason we were virtual since March of 2020 is we wanted to make sure that that our students would be able to come back. As I think you all know, we have a policy, a mandate that all students, faculty, staff are vaccinated, and the students that were here today, almost all of them have uploaded their information. There are a few who may be international students who were still, waiting for them to pass the period when they will be fully protected. So that's something. Some of our policies inside are going to be masks, and we have that in place as we watch the parameters of the pandemic very, very closely, and we'll be considering that throughout. We're very fortunate at Columbia to have some of the leading public health researchers, people from our medical school. I include myself in that as my background. I'm a sociologist who has spent my career in public health and medicine. So I just wanted to mention that to you all. The students will have a very filled week this week of orientation activities where they will get to hear from faculty in the sciences and the core curriculum. They will be guided by an orientation leader. We have put all of the students into groups, and we try to make sure these groups are very diverse in terms of bringing people from different backgrounds. It's one of the beautiful things about our school, the diversity of lived experience of what each of our students brings to our community. And they will have a lot of chance to try to meet other classmates, other friends. We always say to our students really that, there are probably three big reasons, you come to a place like Columbia University, and one of them, of course, is in the forefront is to study with our world-renowned faculty. Another is to be in New York City and all that New York City has to offer. And then the third is really to the classmates that they have will be people that they will have as peers for the rest of their lives, and they will transition to our alumni network, which is really key throughout. I am seeing a few of the comments in the chat, and I should also mention that until we are able to bring family and parents and everybody on campus, we will have a number of virtual events as well. It's very, very important that we stay connected. If I was with you in person, I would be handing out my card and my email. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. So, please, if you'd like to say hello individually, please be in touch. And we very much love to hear from you. And there are many ways that families and parents can get involved with the school and supporting. We have various events that you could help us, with planning. There's always ways. We certainly, for our school, financial aid is one of my highest goals for us to continue to do better and better. And so we're always looking, for people also who may want to support the school in different ways. So this is just a chance to say hello and greetings. And I think we are probably about at the point where I'm going to introduce our speaker, Professor Nicole Wallack. But maybe for a moment, before we go ahead and do that, if there are any questions or anything that anyone would like to turn, for a moment, I think we still have a few minutes just to ask any or share. I mean, I say this, and I say this as also as a parent of three daughters, one who graduated college last year, that I know as a parent, it's not only an exciting day for your child, if you are a parent here, it's an exciting day for you as well. And so I want to offer you congratulations. But let me see if does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Oh, I see Gil Reichman. Hello. I know I'm looking quickly. Does anybody like to say anything or share at this moment? Okay, then I think if Professor Wallack is ready, I think I'm going to do the introduction. And first, I just want to say to Professor Wallack how grateful we are that you've taken your time to join us this morning. Professor Wallack directs our Columbia University's writing program. And I should mention that every one of our students, your students, will be required to take university writing as early as they can in their Columbia journey. And it's an essential, wonderful course. And we are just so fortunate, Professor Wallack and all of her team. She is also a senior lecturer in discipline in the Department of English and Comparative Literature. She teaches seminars on writing, pedagogy, writing studies, theory, American literature and film, creative nonfiction and literatures of fact, public intellectuals, and undergraduate essay writing courses. And one of the things, just to mention, that the feedback I get from students who take university writing is if they're fortunate, they can get into a section that is really an area that they're interested in. And it's not just learning the composition of writing, but it is really an emphasis on teaching students to write as a public intellectual. And Professor Wallack is a senior associate at the Institute for Writing and Thinking at Bard College. She also conducts intensive seminars on writing-based teaching for educators across disciplines to enhance their intellectual lives and devise inherently purposeful curricula from kindergarten through graduate school. Professor Wallack's scholarship focuses on the history, pedagogy, and aesthetics of the American essay, rhetoric and composition, writing studies, writing program administration, teacher education, and educational history. She also writes on the literature and film of city life, Her articles, essays, and reviews have appeared in collections as well as fourth genre, Essay Daily, and public books. Her recent book, Crafting Presence, The American Essay and the Future of Writing Studies, that was published by Utah State University Press, offers theoretical and pedagogical arguments for how an essay-based pedagogy in high school and college can enact the goals of a liberal education more effectively and ethically than college and career readiness paradigms. She is the vice president of the Council of Writing Program Administrators Metro Affiliate Group in New York. She has served on the Committee for Contingent Labor in the Profession for the Modern Language Association and the Editorial Collaborative for the profession. She has represented faculty in the humanities on the Faculty Affairs Committee of Columbia University Senate since 2013. And in 2017-2018, she was the co-chair of the Lecturers Study Committee for the Arts and Sciences, which produced the first comprehensive report and recommendations on the status of lecturer rank faculty at the university. On a personal note, she is a champion of our students, always looking, and I know very much enjoying working with GSers. So welcome, Professor Wallack.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. Can I get a thumbs up if I can be heard? Thanks. I'm in that weird space where I don't know what you hear of me, but anyway, I want to thank so much Dean Rosen-Metsch for once again inviting me here, and Jill Galpicki for coordinating and letting me have this time with you. In the time that we have together, I think we have about 35, 40 minutes, something along those lines. Yep. Okay. So I am really hoping that this will be, I want to tell you some things and I want to ask you some things. And so the point of asking people things, I hope, is that you actually want to hear what they have to say. I guess there's a lot of people we may know in our lives who actually, they'll just ask the question. They may or may not want to hear the answer. I actually will want to hear the answer. So if you would just, help us know, this is a big room. I'm so grateful that so many of you are here to be introduced to this wonderful university and to be there for your friends and partners and family members. So if you will just let yourself be known, and we will figure out a way to make sure that everybody else hears you as well. Okay, so yes, you heard everything about me. You already know everything about me. I can say a couple of things first about our program. The undergraduate writing program is situated in the Department of English and Comparative Literature here at Columbia, and we're housed at 310 Philosophy Hall. That's where we are. And this program began when in 2002, Columbia was ready to make a recommitment to writing in a different way for all students at Columbia. There had been a writing program here, and it was a really important and great one for a long time, but we needed to deeply rethink it. And I was fortunate to be part of that team, that early team, and the new version of University Writing was launched actually in 2003. So we're 18 years in. Since 2010, we've been not only offering one version of university writing, but we've been seeing university writing and our program as a partner across the university with different multidisciplinary institutes and centers. And now we have 10 themed courses. So we started first as partners with the Institute for Research on Women and Gender, which is what it was called then, Gender and Sexuality Studies. We moved into working with a variety of institutes, including the Institute for Data and Society, the Institute for Human Rights, the Center for American Studies. And this year, we are excited to launch our first cluster of courses in race and ethnicity. And we teach our course in these ways because we think it's really important for people to have the opportunity to engage in essay writing with a group of interested others, potentially in an area of or theme such as medical humanities, which is one of our themes, or law and justice, which is another, that people feel that they already know that there are things that many people need to weigh in about, and we believe that they should start doing that right away in university. So we'll say a little bit more about that in just a minute. I'm just going to share my screen, if I may. Okay.
I think we might have lost you.
Oops. Did you lose me, or can you still hear me?
We hear you, we just don't see you.
You're there, and your screen is visible. What is university?
Oh, we're good now. You went black for a second. Now we see you.
Okay, it seems to have frozen a little bit for me. So let me see. Can you see my screen yet or no?
Yes.
Nicole, you're successfully sharing your screen, but it looks like your camera is off for it to see you.
Camera is off. Okay, let's
There you
see.
There you are, you're back.
Perfect.
Great,
We can hear
Okay,
you,
great.
see you, and see your slides.
wonderful. Okay, so the internet is very, very busy here today. There's a lot going on with the internet. So, so let's talk a little bit about what university writing is. University writing is a part of Columbia's core curriculum. That's the crucial thing to know first. We work alongside the other core courses for this university, and there are 5 other dedicated courses which you will already maybe know about: contemporary civilizations, literature humanities, art humanities, music humanities, frontiers of science, and then of course there is the global core and other requirements, including the swimming test, right? So yes, we're in 310 Philosophy Hall, where we house, this is our sort of purview as a program, we house, oversee, and offer university writing as a program. And that's about 900 students per semester take our courses in sections of 14. We run the writing center that happens both in person in 310 Philosophy, in the library, and also virtually on Zoom. In addition to doing that work, we also provide pedagogical training and support for our graduate student instructors, undergraduate peer writing fellows, and also our wonderful UWP lecture rank faculty. We're also for the primary home at Columbia University for research on rhetoric, composition, and writing studies. There is Teachers College, and we do some work with them, but in terms of sustained inquiry into what it means to run writing programs and to teach writing, really, particularly in the college realm, the UWP is that area. So I would like to know, as we go into the next part of our conversation, what makes something worth writing to you? So I wonder if you would just take a moment, please, to populate the chat. You may not have to understand yourself as a writer, okay? So if you'd be willing to say some things in the chat for us, what makes anything worth writing to you? Would people just avail yourself of the chat? Just put some stuff there, please. She says nicely.
Yes. Hi. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi.
Hi. I'm actually an educator of 11 years. And one thing that
Wonderful.
Alex Bennett's mom. Hi. I don't know if anyone can see me. I'm not sure if my video is on.
Oh, okay. I can't see you. You're welcome to turn it on if you want to.
Oh, sorry. I think I accidentally turned it off. Hold on. Let's see.
Okay.
Not sure. And it's funny because It was on. I apologize.
As you're figuring that out, maybe I'll just also note the fantastic
Yeah,
things
go
that
ahead.
people are putting in the chat about thoughts that are worth clarifying or something that touches one. Sherry Darman tells us that writing that makes a personal connection. Thank you, Precious, for something that touches you. Yes. Will, sharing instructions. Absolutely. Worth writing that sort of stuff down. Jean, yes, I'm a writer, so writing is thinking, right? Writing is thinking made visible. I want us to think a little bit more about that. I'd like to hear more about what you're saying. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the person who just weighed in, but if you want to say what you're thinking, I'd be glad to hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was me. I
Oh, geez.
was hi. I was just Alex Bennett's mom. Hi, everybody. He's been doing writing at kind of a level of baccalaureate for practice, and so I was curious if basically it sounds to me like it's very similar, and I think it's really the rigor of the writing itself to get the student to be thinking and processing the information is, I believe, a huge factor in writing at the university level. Having written 20-page papers myself, I know that the process of the 5 parts of the brain that are engaged when someone does a paper of that length and that magnitude is it makes them think of their own thoughts and make sure that they're getting them out correctly so that the reader will actually be able to understand what they're trying to say and convey. So I think it's amazing. I'm really excited he'll be back in that environment again. He didn't do baccalaureate, but some of the classes he took in his school, that was a really big factor in him remembering deeply. And I think it's wonderful because it gets them ready for if they do want to pursue an academic career as well. That's an expectation.
Thanks. That's great. Would a couple of other people like to say about your own experience of writing? Meaning, how do you know that something's worth writing about? Maybe people will build on some of the things that you have said in your piece in the chat. You'll have to sing out because I can't see all your faces. Clyde Schechter, if you could share my voice, would you say a little bit more about when you've learned something new and just explain it to others?
Okay, well, I'm an epidemiologist, and I spend most of my time doing research. And when I've gone through a project and found new conclusions, preferably ones that are surprising that I didn't expect to find, that's when I get really excited about writing it up as a paper.
Thank you. And I see several of us who are thinking about writing in one of those modalities, including about explanation. Columbia Mom, the engineer, do you want to say more about that? The answer may be no. What about, I'd like to hear more, I'd love to hear a little bit more about personal connection. Several of us have talked about that. Would a couple of us say something about, if you said something about a personal connection, would you just say a little bit more about what that means for you?
Hi, my name's Sherry, and
Hi, Sherry.
my background's math and engineering, although I did teach math for a while. I find when I work with students and when I'm reading something that if it can speak to me, something that is either a concern I have or something that is a shared experience, that it grabs my attention and I really listen to what the author's saying. When I work with my students, if they do have writing, which is not my first strength, I do try to tell them to write about something that they're connected to, because then it sounds much more authentic and it's also easier for them to do. So I don't
Yeah, I think in my own experience is that people have a mixed response. Like when you feel very passionately about something and you're very invested, sometimes it actually makes it harder. I don't know if anybody's ever had that feeling. It's like, this is so important to me. Like, you know, there's that sort of pressure sometimes to make it feel like the thing, you know? And one of the things that we want to do in our course and in the Writing Center and elsewhere is to help people understand that if something really means something to you, you're not going to write about it once, probably. In fact, you may be writing about it kind of your whole life, whether you want to or not. So we might as well make a start together, you know, might as well start it here. A couple of other people have talked about making records. Gabrielle Selle, I'm sorry that I don't know how to pronounce your last name correctly. Would you give us a little bit more detail about what you mean?
It's Soleil. Thank you for asking. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yes, the best way of talking about that is one of my favorite poems that I ever wrote was about, it was a moment in time when my son was 2 years old, and I just knew it was a tiny little moment that was going to go away very quickly if I didn't kind of grab it and record it. And it's really true, like it would have gone away. And every time I look at it, it just brings me right back to that little moment with my little toddler who I just dropped off at college, a different college, a couple days ago. And I guess a lot of my writing is concerned with the passage of time. And that's just one of those very, you're right, you write about the same thing over and over again, and it manifests itself in different ways. And that was one of them.
Yes, I also hear that, Stephen Lim, when you talk about making memories alive, to me that also sounds like a version of that too. It's things in the past and things in the present. Stephen, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, it's almost 12 midnight now in Singapore, so I might be talking rubbish. But yeah,
so far you're very coherent.
For me, I live to eat, so I just like to write about all the secret places that that I eat at, and I try to share it with close friends so that they can also enjoy those feasting moments. For me, memories would also be those good times I spent with the family, with my wife during our dating days. So yeah,
beautiful.
that's a way to record something and then help me recall those wonderful moments.
Yes, thank you. So I think that many of us will have had the experience. It can feel like maybe that writing is the personal part, and that writing in university should really feel very different. And I think that's true. Some of the times I think that's really true. But one of the things that we also want to explore for those of us who work in our program and work in writing studies more generally is the reality, which is that the line between school life and other parts of life is a very porous boundary. It is not a line, it is at most a dotted line with a very faint pencil. So it's not that we don't understand that you have to be different on the page, and there are very different requirements and expectations for how to be as a writer, both in how you go about your work, what you share, the expectations for language, for how you use sources and that sort of thing. But one of the things that we try to help all folks who are going through our courses to do, and to work with us in the Writing Center to do, is to rethink about the relationship of writing in their lives writ large. So that if writing serves many purposes for us, which it can and does, that the writing that they do, even inside any given course, has to be able to sound like a lot of different things and do a lot of different things for us. Somebody above mentioned that they think of writing as a form of thinking, and we certainly share that idea. But too many people think that writing has to sound like only and always like the final thought, your last thought about it. And one of the things that we want to help people recognize is that writing can also sound, before you revise it, like just what you need to say to yourself about the subject matter or about a text, or about a colleague's paper. You have to do these things. It has to be able to sound bad. I don't mean like mean or cruel or unethical. I mean, sometimes you have to do that too, in fact. But you have to have space and freedom for writing to do a lot of different kinds of work in our lives. Otherwise, my grandmother used to have a whole set of stuff in her closet that she wouldn't wear because she was saving it for best, okay? You say, Grandma, that dress, it was so beautiful. You know, I only saw you wear it, 2 times at the holidays. And she was like, well, I'm saving it for best. Too many things get saved for best. So we wanna put things out in the world at different times for different readers and readerships. So we can have a lot more conversation about this, I hope. But anyway, let me just tell you a couple more things, and then I hope that we can open it up for a minute or two of conversation. All right, so we are going to go back to here. Okay. So we have 2 principles of university writing and the UWP. So you've heard me say 1. Life in school at any age is real life. It's not preparatory for life. It's not prior to it. It's happening. Real life is happening. And when you're in school, it's still happening. And so what you read and write should be and is part of the real world. The most detailed and specific form of academic writing is still part of the real world. And we just really emphasize that from the beginning. So when we think about in writing studies, what the research is telling us that students believe about meaningful writing projects, our colleagues, Michelle Idoiche, Anne Ellen Geller, and Neil Lerner did an amazing study of 780 student writers, and they looked at self-reports. We can have conversation about the efficacy of looking at self-reports, but it is important to know what people think coming out of university made any kind of writing that they did in school context, this is in a college setting, meaningful. For these researchers, the students said, and this was across several different universities, writing projects that were meaningful would be connected to writing that they would do as professionals. So students saw that as forward-looking. It would be connected to their lives and interests beyond school. So it would have this kind of bridging capacity. It would help them learn or explore content more deeply. So this means that it's not only the paper that they would write at the end, but how else we use writing in classes. And it had requirements, but also offered them or required them to exercise considerable choice. So in our class, we focus on the contemporary essay, and we do so for a few reasons. Essays, they range widely in terms of content and forms, from scholarship and journalism, op-eds to creative nonfiction. And I want all students to start working in a genre that has that kind of flexibility, that kind of capaciousness in the world. It's not just one kind of thing, it does a lot of work in the world. Writers also turn to essays when they want to communicate their ideas across disciplines. That's really the case. If we look in our journals, often, especially interdisciplinary journals, often those are essays that are trying to bring or synthesize multiple disciplines into relationship. But it's also the genre that we turn to as scholars when we're trying to think about our research in a public way. And that's very important to us. In university writing, students also write for real readers in our classes, but also real readers beyond our classes. And one of the ways that we do that is we have a publication that students can submit to. It's called the Morningside Review, and you can find it at themorningsidereview.org. And it is a wonderful home for prize-winning essays from our program. Another place and a dimension of the work that students do in university writing is that we look beyond the university and students publish their the final piece of the course is an op-ed that students write. They either draw it from material that they have previously written in our class and recast it for a more public audience, because it is important to do that translation work, or they write on a topic that's really crucial to them. And we're very excited that over the last, I would say, 8 years, that we've had this op-ed project. All over 400 students from our program have had their op-eds printed and published in major venues. We certainly have had them published through the Morningside Review, as you'll see here. So Victor Javier Garnika, who took our class last year, it happens that he's a veteran. Many of our veterans do end up publishing. They have much to say and bring a wealth of experience, of course. And this is his piece, Reaching the Camouflage Ceiling. And Dion Brian Hazel also was published one of his op-eds for the Morningside Review. Also a veteran, as it happens. It's not just the veterans who published or get published, but just happens that's who it was. They also go beyond to places like HuffPo, the South China Morning Post, FoxNews.com, the Washington Post, and many other international venues. I just want to say that we fundamentally think, and you have said this as well, that you are excited by the idea that writing is a way to show up in the world and to offer your ideas. We certainly share that feeling too. And we are really excited and proud that one of the ways that your family members and friends and partners will show up in the world is with us in the undergraduate writing program. So I want to thank you in advance for supporting students that way. And I'm happy for us to open this up to conversation and questions. It could be that people could you just nominate a few of us to, maybe our colleagues from JAS will help us monitor the chat so that we can see who's ready to say something.
I'm Pili Bianchi, and my niece is attending Columbia, and writing is so critical on many levels. And I think you bring it up with the research end of it, the critical thinking, the essays. And I have written in animal cognition, and what I've discovered is that there's a great divide between research publications and actually delivering valuable information to the masses. So I think it's critical to be able to straddle both worlds and have the technique to modify valuable information that when I view writing as personal, I mean personal to the audience. Because unless your reader cares about what they're reading about, they're not going to digest the information. So that's my point of view.
Yeah, I thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of the things that we talk about a lot in university writing is how do you communicate the exigence of anything that you're saying, which is exactly what you're talking about. How do I let you know, reader, that it's not just my thing, I just felt like saying it, but that we, between you and I, that we have an investment together. There's something we stand to gain or lose for me to have written it and for you to be reading and engaging with this material. And that's a really hard thing to practice. It's a developmental thing. It's hard. What else would people like to ask or say?
I think I'm curious as to along the line of what you were just saying there, when there are people involved in trying to convey their opinion, it's very tempting to not use the critical thinking skills and make it too subjective of an opinion piece, but it sounds like you're going to be emphasizing the balance to not only reach the reader, but to inform the reader. And in that way, get them personally involved and energized and excited about the topic, to pull them into the more esoteric and intellectual discussion. That's, to me, going to be an exciting thing for especially maybe a student who their emphasis has been more of the technical information. My own son is going to cross over poli-sci with systems engineering or information systems. And right now there's so many people who just roll their eyes because there's so much data to be absorbed when they're reading a piece about the topic. But I think that this will really help him because the emphasis class that you're putting him in will allow him to understand how to convey that information.
Yeah, and one of the things that I just want to say, is this Leslie that I'm talking to?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
Me again.
yeah, so I just want to say, like, it's also that students put themselves in these classes. So they choose the theme that is compelling to them. And one of the things that we find exciting is that someone may come in saying, oh, you know, I'm a data systems person, I'm going to go do data and society. But maybe what they really want to do is they want to do film and performing arts, you know, for their focus. And that's really beautiful too. Like, yeah, just give it a go, you know, is our sense. And we hope this isn't the last time you pursue those kinds of topics, you know, over the course of your lives. But for example, when I taught one of the first cohorts of the medical humanities theme in its early iterations, there were a couple of people in class who were not committed to careers in medicine and became very interested in it. And one person is now, you know, applying for med school. Similarly, and don't take this the wrong way, families who want their kids to be doctors, sometimes it works the other way. Like that, sometimes students, you know, start out thinking, I'm going into law or I'm going into one of the other professions, and actually, as they start looking at sociology, or they start looking at questions of philosophy, that's a direction that they decide they want to go in. And the most amazing part of it for me is actually when all of those things come together, so that you don't have to choose between being an engineer and to be someone who is very invested in human rights, that these things are deeply in relationship and the questions are deeply in relationship. One of the things I'll just say, and then I want to hear more from you with whatever time we have left, which may be short, is that every semester we have a talk given by, it's not really a talk, it's really a conversation that we have with one of our highly esteemed Columbia faculty members, where they talk about how they go about writing and doing their very high level research. So last year we were able, because of COVID and because of, you know, Zoom, we had to put everything online. So we had multiple of these events. We partnered with the School of Professional Studies, and they were wonderful partners for it. So we had conversations with the likes of Brian Green and Marco Tedesco and my wonderful colleague, Denise Cruz, who were writing about the humanities and writing in the sciences, and writing in the social sciences, writing for mission-based audiences. Those talks are actually up on YouTube, so you still can look at them, and they're really wonderful. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of that. Jill, would you want to weigh in about how much more time we have just for conversation if people want to have some?
Sure, I would say we have at least 10 minutes. And there have been some great comments in the chat. Anne wrote that
freshman writing.
Someone has a question. Right.
Did someone have a question they wanted to ask? And you're very welcome to turn on your camera if you are able to.
I was just going to share, someone named Anne's son took university writing and talked about how much he enjoyed it. Maybe Anne, do you want to elaborate on that and let others know his experience?
Hi.
Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet everybody, and thank you for putting this this recording together. My son Joshua took university writing over the summer, and it was really a phenomenal course. I think it was a lot harder than he was expecting. It really challenged him to push himself, and sort of looking at his pieces from the start in May to the final submission of his op-ed, it just was incredible how much he'd improved and how much more concise and informative his writing was. So he elected not to publish his piece for various reasons, but yeah, he just really enjoyed the process so much. Very, very valuable, and we're so grateful that he managed to get into the course. I know it's not always easy to get a space, and I'll just say that the lecture that he had was phenomenal. The feedback, very, very concise, very helpful feedback. So yeah, great experience.
I'm so glad to hear that, and it's true that we have the luxury of limiting enrollment in each section to 14 students. And that means that whether your instructor is a lecturer, meaning a faculty member, or a graduate student, they have time to really attend to the student work and to work both collaboratively to help people know how to help each other improve our writing. We all need that, but also to work individually. One of the things that a lot of people have concerns about often in writing classes is that they'll say, well, and certainly this is true in K through 12 context as well, the sort of primary, secondary school context. They'll say, well, students can't teach each other anything about writing, so it doesn't make a great deal of sense to have them weigh in on one another's work. And there's a way in which that's right. Students, some may be very advanced and have a lot of skills and know how to communicate them, and others may not. Really, though, the harder thing is that we all of us as writers, we earn the right as readers of other people's work to provide them with feedback of any kind, even to say, I like it, I don't like it. So family members, partners, let me say, dear friends, if a student at GS, if your dear one comes to you with a piece of their writing and they say, would you read this for me? It's due, or it's a draft, I feel nervous. One of the very powerful things that you might say to them is, how would you like me to read it? And that means not like, read it with a smile on your face, for goodness sakes. I just spent, from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. getting this thing done. So not just that, although smiling is fine. But also about what is it that would be most helpful at this point. And for early pieces of writing, it's not helpful to copy edit someone else's work at that stage. It's not actually very helpful to give them a lot of detailed critique about sentences, for example, where the grammar might be really terrible. And the harder the sentence, the harder the idea, the more likely the sentence is to be really messed up. And so one of the things that we always want when we're giving feedback and asking students to give each other feedback in class first is just describe one's own experience as a reader of that text. And that can sound like this. Wow, I was really excited when I heard you making this promise to me at the beginning of your piece, and I got lost about where the answer came later on. Or, wow, you seem so interested in this text that you're writing about, but I noticed that you're quoting the text a lot, and I don't really hear very much about what you think about the things you're quoting. So it would be helpful for me as a reader. I would like just to know more about what you're thinking. Now, does that mean that the student should write something in particular about anything in the text? Nope. You're just giving them your own experience as their reader. And that's what we can do best, actually, at most times. And if the student is working in a classroom with a teacher where they're learning principles and practices of writing, they're going to know what to do next. They're going to have some options. And so I just wanted to invite that, because often we want to help our loved ones through. My husband went back to university after a big hiatus, you know, for his undergraduate work and then for his graduate work some years ago. And he still talks about how those first papers back at his undergraduate institution and the first essays that he wrote were really high stakes for him and really challenging. And one of the things that he most needed to learn was how to let himself write a faulty draft that could get revised. And even that something that could get a bad grade, because the grade is not the final determiner of like whether we're successful on a piece of writing. What else would folks like to say before we take our leave? Are there any questions that people want to ask at this point?
I had a question. I'm Jeannie, and I'm speaking for a couple of us that asked because our kids weren't able to get into university writing for this semester.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what that looks like, knowing that how well they write affects all their other classes. When is it likely that that option will become available to them?
Either people take it in the fall or they take it in the spring. So that's the story. But in the meantime, they are very welcome to bring any writing assignment they wish to our Columbia University Writing Center. And they can sign up for those appointments through the Writing Center link. There's a big sign up. And then you can meet individually. This is a free service with someone to look at any piece of writing at any stage of development, like even as soon as you just get the assignment and you're trying to read and figure out how to take good notes. So I always say people make a mistake when they don't avail themselves of the stuff that we ourselves, I go to the Writing Center myself for my own work. It is not remedial at all. And it's meant to support writers at every stage of their development, and they can start going now. So that would be my strong suggestion.
Nicole, there's a question in the chat. How many essays do the students tend to write over the course of a semester?
Thanks. I see that Robin Ezer asked that. Thank you, Robin. So in university writing, they only end up writing 4 pieces, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, because they write multiple drafts of each piece, and they write preliminary exercises in order to practice the skills that are required for the final essay. So they'll have usually 2 preliminary drafts and at least 2 to 3 exercises before the draft, before the final is due. And this is really to emphasize that writing is a recursive process. It's not a linear one. Like you think about what you're going to say and then you write it, and then maybe you clean up the language. That is not the way writing works for most of us. There's a very small amount of population, very, very small, who can like write and revise in their heads and then transcribe what they're thinking onto the page. But for most of us, and the number of us who talk about writing and thinking can attest that you have to work through a lot of versions of what you're thinking to clarify and to do that thinking on the page. In the first essay, students do a very close analysis of just one contemporary essay. This is the other thing about this course, which is important to know, that students read in university writing contemporary essays from all these different places where essays come from creative nonfiction, from journalism, from scholarship. And it's really important for them to see the range of those pieces. So in the first piece, they read a contemporary essay and they do some analysis of how it works. So they start to get a sense of not only the genre, but also these ideas that are emerging through the genre. In the second essay, students put more than one, so usually 2 to 3 essays in relationship around a theme that the instructor has chosen, and then use that conversation, that intertextual conversation, to leverage an analysis, usually of a phenomenon outside of it. So for example, in my course on human rights, often the second essay is about the politics of representation in film and in still photography of human rights abuses or atrocities. And so what's at work when we're trying to represent those terrible situations? And so we'll read 2 or 3 essays by different people taking on different vantage points about this issue. And then students will use that, what they've gleaned from across these texts, to analyze an image or a film of their own choosing. The third essay is a research-based essay where students pursue their own interests, again, under the theme, and sometimes in relationship to a text that the whole group has in common as a starting point, so that they're not alone in their thinking. And then the final piece is the op-ed. So thank you, Robin, for asking that question. It's 4. What else? Let's see.
There was a
Academic
question.
research. Yep.
Sorry, I was trying to answer some of them as you were sharing. I was plugging our Academic Resource Center, which Nicole, I know you're familiar with, if you wanted to elaborate on. And then also, as a first-time college parent, this is from Columbia Mom, any helpful hints, tips, excuse me, to help our students best succeed as best they can?
I have so many answers to this question, Columbia Mom. So many. I think this is what I think. To succeed at university in a first semester, given especially the year that all of us have had, and I don't assume to know the kind of years that you and your families and loved ones have had. I presume that it was hard. So one of the things that I hope that we can do is to help students be patient with themselves as they make a very large transition. Because even I have experienced students who have been doing 2-year college work and had that degree and have been also balancing their, our parenting that we have to do and our caregiving potentially and our jobs and all those other dimensions of life. I think sometimes we still have this fantasy that we're supposed to get it all right away. And if we don't do that, that we're like not supposed to be here. So imposter syndrome is real, and it's really hard to give ourselves space to do the learning. So the first thing that I might say is, I hope that your loved ones have people that they can be in conversation with, including you and maybe also beyond, for those moments when it's going to end up feeling overwhelming. That's just an emotional, social emotional question. The other thing though that I think GS students have reported over time is that they really value the fact that they are in a class with other GS students for university writing. This is, I think, the only core course in which that's the case, that they are with other GS students. And I know that students in my classes have forged, lifelong relationships, or even just really strong relationships for the year as they navigate their first year of university here at Columbia in particular. And so I would say to reach out to those colleagues too. You want to get together and just swap papers. Let's just, you want to check in about how the reading's going. This is not because someone else knows better than you do, but it's just someone else is doing the same work you're doing at the same time. And for many of our GS students who are, for example, not in dorm life, it can be challenging to create that kind of social space. So I believe in the cup of hot beverage that you like as a great way to sit down and in a casual way, just go over the work and just check in. The other thing that I would say is really helpful is to have a journal of some kind. You won't be surprised that mine had a writing component to it, but just to do a little reflection every day and a little bit of goal setting goes a very long way to help us not feel overwhelmed by the myriad tasks in front of us across as many classes that they may be taking. They may be taking just one, but they may be taking, 4 or something. And so 4 or 5. So just to say, if you can write yourself, not a to-do list, but what is on my plate you may or may not have to do it all. Just what do I have to do, and what are my feelings about that? So I hope that that's at all helpful. Any other things that you may not want to ask anything, but you may just want to say some things? Anything that you want to say to us?
Just want to say thank you for all of the great advice for students. And some people, I'm sure their students had some very rigorous writing experience, and other students are coming in from maybe more of a technical aspect, or they're coming in from a more esoteric aspect, and to be able to kind of merge the two and have them be able to flesh out that other direction, I think is really invaluable. And your advice on keeping the emotional part very much into the project is really invaluable, because the excitement of the students that I've been able to talk to is just palpable. And I know that they are very nervous, and they have experienced some imposter syndrome. So you mentioning that, I think, is really, really important, especially for a GS student who needs to understand that their personal and life experience that they've had, and the possible different path that they've taken, is actually more invaluable than they think.
I'll say one more thing. This is advice. One more thing about advice, that we teach a lot of essays by Columbia faculty, and conversely, a lot of Columbia faculty teach essays that we may or may not get to teach. What I'm saying is that I think it's really wonderful if your student already has an interest in particular kinds of subject matter, and may want to work with a particular Columbia faculty member in their upper level courses, to start reading their work now. And then go to their office hours and talk with them about it. I can't tell you the number of times where students who are, just excited about the subject matter, if they just start to show up in your office hours, it's a crucial way to have a relationship with faculty that they often don't get to have beyond the course that they're teaching immediately. And I think that it's just it's a terrific resource that students underutilize. They don't want to bother the faculty member or something like that. But Columbia faculty want to talk to students. The largest majority of faculty that I know, they are excited to talk with students. And especially if it's about, oh wow, I read your piece. And especially like I'm reading your piece in university writing, and I just thought I would come to your office hours because I was excited about what you're doing. I mean, that's quite an amazing thing. So just to say, that's another thing to bravery test, right? Like, give it a go. They'll be okay. It'll be all right. I also want to say that if your student, my office is right outside 310 Philosophy Hall, in Philosophy Hall. I'm in 307 Philosophy. And so I always encourage, if a student is having some issues, things aren't going in their class exactly the way they wish, that first you should really encourage them to talk with their instructor. The instructor wants it to be a good class. Nobody doesn't want it to be a good class. So it's really important to have that line of communication open earlier rather than later. And if for some reason they can't get it sorted together, please have your student feel free to come and reach out to me in my office, or by email, or by phone. And I'm happy to, often it's about just the three of us sitting down and saying, hey, what's going on? Like, let's see if we can make something better happen. I'll tell you the time when we can't really do that is after the fact. So if the course is over and grades are in, it makes it almost impossible for us to do anything to either help the student or to help the instructor, or both, find a better ways of working together. That happens very, very rarely. I'll say maybe it happens 3 times a year, but it does happen. And I just want your loved one to know that I want to know who they are, and I want to know if they're having a good time too. So it was great to hear that someone had a wonderful experience this summer. So I think with this, that concludes the official part of my program. here. If there's anything else that folks want to make sure we say before we take our leave of one another, I'm happy to hear it. Otherwise, I'll say thank you so much. Thank you already for everything you're doing for your loved one, and we'll so look forward to seeing them in university writing and in the Writing Center.
And I just want to jump in to thank Professor Wallack. This was wonderful. I got a lot out of this just listening to this all. And to Leslie Miller, your point about engaging faculty, we have a session tomorrow afternoon. You could encourage students to attend. My colleague Victoria Rossner leads a session on engaging faculty with tips and so on. And so we try to, you know, especially for students, it's not in their nature. And I will just say, I said this morning, the faculty really appreciate the stories of our students, getting to know our students. And I think, again, it's just sometimes students are a little bit nervous about going to those office hours or you know, outreaching to faculty, but we will be there to help them. Also, in the next session that we have at 12:30 with the Dean of Students Office, each one of our students has an advising dean, and that person is will hopefully stay with them, you know, throughout their time at Columbia, and is a really great resource, and can also sometimes help connect with that faculty. I mean, we will try to do that as well to help.
Yeah, it's been a huge benefit for my student already. He's already reached out several times to advising faculty, and his father actually is a professor of AI. And it's amazing though how intimidating it can be if you have a father who's a professor. You're not always reaching out to faculty like you should. He's really overcome that. Very proud of him, because it is kind of a reverse cognition thing, you know. You got to get past it. We're all people, and we're at different levels, and he's just really enjoying he's had some interactions with faculty, even like at a grocery store, and just how willing they are just to discuss the passions that they have for the topic, and you know, just many subjects in general.
Yeah, and you touched upon a point. The majority of the faculty live in the neighborhood, so you know, people will run into people on the street, you know, in the supermarket, all over. So it's a village. One of the beautiful things about being at a place like Columbia University.
Yeah, it is really wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining. Dean Rosen-Metsch for being with us on this busy start to orientation, and of course Professor Wallach as she's preparing curriculum and her team for the semester. Our colleagues placed in the chat the link for our next session, which is with our Dean of Students Office. I hope you will join us and learn a little bit more about the additional resources, how your student can be involved in them, and a little bit more about who the staff is at GS, of course. So thank you all for joining. Congratulations and welcome to the GS family.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.